Kona, Hawaii is known for some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. It's a place to forget your worries and indulge in relaxation and pleasure. Families come to play and enjoy time together in the sun. Although exciting and fun on the surface, the waves also cause dangerous undertows beneath the water that can be a serious risk, especially during the winter months. Art Sanborn and his wife Ellen came to the beach the afternoon of December 13, 1998. Art, an avid body surfer, was anxious to get some time in the ocean. After a rigorous teaching schedule at a nearby university, they found a few hours to enjoy some outdoor relaxation. Then, in an instant, as a wave violently pushed him to the ocean floor, his life was changed forever.
As soon as I crashed, I heard a sound in my neck that went crack. And I knew that was probably not a good sign. My first thinking was that I would just swim to the shore and just rest. But then when I tried to swim, I just found myself just kind of floating up to the top. And there I was, face down in the water, unable to move, and just having to hold my breath.
Art tried to calm himself by counting. By the time he reached 110, he was craving to breathe. When he knew he could hold out no longer, he found himself facing up, gulping in pure air.
Waves. Somebody go. Get 911. Quick.
Yeah.
Is he moving?
Yes, we have an emergency.
Get 911.
Is he moving?
Okay. Get in here, come on, girls. Let's go. Okay, what do we have here?
Well, my first thought was that he's going to be fine. You know, just he's had a little accident, but we'll get him to the hospital and he'll be fine, take him home again, and yeah.
So you didn't think it was anything serious?
Well, I knew he was paralyzed, but the lifeguard that was holding his neck just kept saying, oh, you know, this happened to me, I was surfing, and this happened to me one time, and I was paralyzed for like 6 hours, but then I was fine, I was cool, man, it was okay. So he was talking like that to him the whole time. So I was thinking, oh yeah, it's probably going to be okay. You just never think the worst, you know? Yeah.
Mrs. Sanborn, David, we got the test results back, and I'm very sorry to tell you that they're not good. We've got the x-rays, the MRIs in. Art had partially severed 2 vertebrae in his cervical neck, C3 and C4. It was a very serious injury that could have killed him. The doctors explained that although the body's bones are able to regenerate, nerves and spinal cords do not. There is virtually no hope of regaining the function of impaired nerves. I'm very much afraid that this indicates that your husband, your dad, is going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. I'm very sorry. Art would now be faced with one of the biggest challenges of his life, coming to terms with his new situation.
I think my feeling was that we can get through this. You know, if I can just help him, we can get through this.
At first, I think I was more in denial. I was thinking, this is not really happening. I'm in a dream. I'm going to wake up. You know, I'm going to talk to my wife and I'm going to say, I just had a horrible nightmare. By the way, I've given up surfing.
Art could have easily allowed himself to become depressed, but he was encouraged by family and friends who loved and cared for him, and encouraging emails that came from around the world.
One day, I came back from the hospital. It was very late at night, and David and I had rented an apartment. David had, you know, canceled all of his engagements to come and to stay with me. And we got back to the apartment, and I was just in tears. And he said, Mom, how are you doing? I said, I'm not doing good. It just seems like every time I step out of the room, something happens, and I'm just so, you know, tired and so upset. And he said, well, Mom, you've just got to trust Dad to God. You've got to have faith that God will take care of him.
Good morning, Art. How are we doing today?
I've been better.
Okay, we're here to exercise again.
Art began to settle into the routine of his new life. Nurses would come in to turn him over every 2 hours. Physical therapy was performed each day to keep his muscles from wasting away. Nurses showed little hope that Art's situation would change. His future seemed to be that of receiving daily repetitive exercises from caregivers.
Mr. Sanborn, I'm Dr. Hughes. I'd like to check and see how you're doing. Can I talk with
The
you?
hospital psychologist intended to inform Art about how depression might enter into his struggle. She made sure patients like Art learn how to deal with their apprehension and fear.
There are various stages of denial, and that's normal. But I also wanted to let you know that it is also normal to consider thoughts of suicide.
Well, Doctor, I'm a Christian, and as a Christian, I would never consider suicide.
I'm glad your belief gives you support. That's good.
You know, even if I never walk again, I know that God will give me the strength to be content.
It's an optimistic outlook. I'm sure that will help you a great deal. And I wanted to ask you what your thoughts have been so far.
Well, Doctor, I do have one question for you.
Sure.
Why in the world would you ask a quadriplegic if I wanted to commit suicide? I mean, what am I going to do? Hold my breath?
Art often thought back to that day. He was able to count over 100 then. It helped him to stay focused and calm. It puzzled him as to how he was able to hold his breath for so long. Could he still do it?
I started to hold my breath, and I noticed this nurse walked into the room, and all of a sudden, she just got in panic mode. She rang some buttons, and this whole medical team came running into my room. And
Don't worry, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I was just trying to see how long I could hold my breath.
Art could only hold his breath for 14 seconds. The nurse told Art that he was lucky he could hold his breath at all. That's when Art realized God had already done a miracle for him while he was in the water. This encouraged him to ask for more.
One day he moved his little finger. The doctor was in there, you know, and he moved his little finger. And have you ever seen the movie Princess Bride? Do you know the movie Princess Bride? Well, he's just got this wonderful, Art's got a wonderful sense of humor. So when he moved his little finger, we got all excited. We said, "You moved your little finger!" And we got so excited. And and he said, "I've been mostly dead for a month. You think the movie?"
Nod of the finger. It's gonna make me happy. Hmm?
Oh, sweetie.
Bit by bit, day by day, he would get just little things back. And it was a real surprise. And then one day he could move his feet kind of like this, just a little shuffle. And so I remember the first time he sat up in a wheelchair, it had been like about a month. He hadn't sat up, he'd been flat. And they tried to sit him up, and he sat up, and it was like, he felt like he was Frankenstein or something. And unfortunately, there was a mirror there, and he still had the neck brace on and the whole thing, and he was like, "Oh, I look like Frankenstein," you know. And it was just, but then he was able to move his feet a little bit, and then in the wheelchair, they would put him in the wheelchair, and with his feet, he'd kind of go like this to move himself across the room. And of course, that was real exciting, you know, to think that he could do something for himself. But so his legs came back before his arms ever did. So it was a long, gradual process. But every time he would do anything, the doctors would all rush in to see what he could do because they were shocked. They were like, "You shouldn't be able to do this."
Art's recovery had begun. It would take over a year for him to slowly regain his abilities. It would take 2 years before he would begin to get feeling back in his body.
It's been a very slow process. I was able to start walking about, let's see, I was in the wheelchair for about 5 months, and then I was in a walker for about 6 weeks. And so within 6 months, I was able to walk, but very stiffly, because I still had no feeling in my body.
It's bizarre. It's like God's remaking his spinal cord. And they say that bones can regenerate after they're broken, and muscles can regenerate, you know, after they're torn. But that nerves, once they're damaged forever. But with Art's case, God is just making a new spinal cord. And doctors to this day, they'll ask him, they'll say, "Now tell me your story again," and they're just fascinated. And they look at his x-rays and they just can't believe what they're seeing.
Come in. Sanborn.
See
I
ya.
heard you were walking.
And when I walked into his office without any assistance, his jaw dropped. And I just said, Dr. Robinson, you gave me hope. But I look at your face now and I can see that you never thought I'd ever walk again. And he said, well, he says, I'm a Christian and I must believe that all things are possible. But he says, I'm also a medical doctor and I know that it is not possible medically for you to walk.
Even though he had no feeling from the neck down, Art knew he had to increase his strength and agility.
So I joined this gym, and I remember looking around and seeing these guys with these huge arms, and they've got these barbells where they got 300-400 pounds, and they're lifting them up over their head. And I got my broomstick, tried to lift this broomstick over my head. I felt like I was a star of Mr. Bean movie or something.
Yeah.
I'm lifting about 110 pounds over my head now. Now I'm running 15-minute miles, and I try to run 6 miles a day, 5 times a week. You know, the world throws many problems in our lives, and I think that the worst thing that we can do is to consider what we're going through as hopeless and get into despair and lose our hope. With God, we need to know that He'll never leave us or forsake us when we've accepted Him as our Lord and Savior.
To order Art Sanborn's book, A Walking Miracle, or to learn more about their ministry, please note the contact information on your screen.